loved your work on season 2 of The Mandalorian. But I've loved your work on so many different things. But universally, season 2 of The Mandalorian, I don't know anyone who's like, oh, that wasn't good. Like everyone seems to love the season. So my thing is that I know they're filming Boba Fett now, and then they're going to film Mandalorian season 3. Can you say if you're involved in either of those?
I can neither confirm nor deny my involvement in the ongoing universe that they have so wonderfully created. But I can say that thank you for. I'm glad you appreciate the second season. It was so much fun to work on because just what Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have done there with the Star Wars universe, I think they have opened up a whole new world of the Star Wars universe where those who were excited before can have a new avenue of exploration, and those it's a whole new set of Star Wars fans are being born or being developed with these new characters, and that's a super exciting thing to be attacking this universe on two fronts, both old and new, is a really cool thing that they've done.
How did you first get involved in doing second unit for Mandalorian? Was it a project that you were sort of looking to do, or how did it happen?
No, that came to me actually. I was editing Extraction, and a friend of mine, Colin Wilson, who's the line producer on the show and executive producer on Mandalorian, he called and was just wondered what I was doing. He was doing some super secret Star Wars-esque thing, and I was like, "It sounds interesting." He's like, "Would you be involved in meeting with John and Dave?" And I was like, "I'd love to. Sounds really cool." Because I'm editing here, so I'm very busy. But if there's times when I can get away to help you guys, I'd love to. So I met with him, and we hit it off right away. John is a very he's a very smart guy and very kind of, I would describe as family oriented. He likes to work with people that he likes and has worked with before. So to be invited into that space is an honor, and I will be forever grateful to have the opportunity, because I feel like every day on set I was learning something, if not from John directly, from other people from every department. They just surround themselves with great filmmakers, and it was an honor to be a part of.
The technology that they're using in the volume is jaw-dropping. I watched that featurette on yesterday, the hour-long featurette on making season 2, and it's incredible what you can now do. And the thing that I think is so striking is that you're on a soundstage, but you feel like you're outside because of the lighting. Like there's no, it really, it's just amazing. Can you sort of talk about your experience working with the volume technology and what really struck you about it?
Yeah, it's an incredible technology. They've really tapped into something that is, I think, going to revolutionize the way people are approaching at least certain aspects of filmmaking. In one way, it was very interesting and kind of to see a throwback in a way that people were, rather than just shooting in front of blue screen and saying, oh, we'll fix it later. There's like virtual scouts that they were doing and designing the locations and the shots and storyboarding them very specifically, almost when you were shooting on film and you had storyboards, and that was the process. It's almost a step back to that in a good way, where people, actors have a real environment that they can work in. You've planned kind of every shot and every way that you want to do it. There's some room for adaptation and improvisation, but it's very, very much laid out in a orderly fashion, and it's just kind of very well planned. So that was really cool aspect. But then it kind of, for interior stuff, or for the the time that all DPs love, like magic hour, when the sun is just setting or just rising, it's fantastic for that. Now midday type stuff, like it's really hard to replicate the power of the sun. It's just a certain feeling in the light that you really can't. So oftentimes for those daylight stuff, we would actually go out and shoot exteriors in front of blue. But then the flexibility it gives you, and to shoot in a very creative way, because you can with it's not that easy as a push of a button, but you can adjust the lighting very specifically to get a look and a feeling that you want. So it really opens up creative avenues for DPs and directors.
Which sequence was for you like the back-breaking one, the one that maybe like really took a long time?
A lot of work went into each one of these sequences, but truthfully, it never feels like work to me when you're working with such great people. And I would say that the most moving parts and planning that went into the execution, and I think satisfaction with the final product was, I believe it was 207, I call it the train sequence, but the sequence when they're on top of the vehicle. And so it's because, you know, that stuff was, we had practical vehicle on, you know, different mechanical rigs. We were shooting outdoors and you had a certain amount of light, and, you know, the stunt performers and actors are in prosthetic makeup, and, you know, there's only a certain amount of time to shoot it. And there's very specific shots that we were trying to get. And so there was a lot of moving parts into that, but then for that to come out as fun as it did, and as kind of, you know, sharp and clean. And with the craziest thing, and I'm going to mention this, is the visual effect. It would look like they were plates, but all of the environment, I was told by Richard, the head of the visual effects department, was created in CG. Other than what we were on, other than like the things that were immediately touching, that was an entirely CG environment. That so the level of craftsmanship and artistic capabilities of the computer generated images now is unbelievable. Like, I was fully immersed in that sequence, and I thought they did an amazing job. Cool to be a part of.
I think what people are not realizing is, you look at that sequence, which is so well done, and then you think what that is going to look like in like 3 years or 5 years as this technology gets better and better, and they figure out like cheats on it, you know?
Yep.
Like, I can't believe, like, when you get to like, if they ever get to like Mandalorian season 5, they're going to look back on season 2 and be like, should we redo it? You know, like, it's going to be so much better.
The expansion and growth rate of the capabilities of these, you know, game engines or the computers and is exponential. Like, the speed with which it's changing, it's really hard to keep up with. And I think that's one thing that John and that everyone over there at Mandalorian is doing so well, is staying on the cutting edge, on the forefront of technology, so that I think you will, if you get to a season 5, you know, if the world is so fortunate, they will be right there at the cutting edge. And it will be, you know, they won't be satisfied with, oh, well, it worked really great in season 1. No, they want it to be the best, cutting edge, leading the pack as far as the technology goes.
One of the things I learned, because I spoke to Robert Rodriguez about directing his episode, and he told me that, like, and man, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said like the script was like 13 pages or 18 pages. It was very short. And he's like, he was talking to John and basically saying, you know, I cut fast. This episode might be 10 minutes, you know? And he's like, well, that's why you're here, is to add to it. So one of the things that I learned about Mandalorian is all the scripts were short. None of them were that long, and it was up to the directors to sort of flesh out things. So could you sort of talk about what it was like working with the various directors to sort of turn these episodes into 30-minute things when maybe on the page it's not that long?
Yeah, it's true. Like, you'd get the script and you'd read it, you know, in 20 minutes and be like, how are we going to make this into a, you know, half hour or almost an hour, you know, depending on the who's directing. But the fun of it was especially getting to work closely with Robert Rodriguez, who's a hero of mine, a filmmaking legend, and I grew up reading his books and watching his movies. And so to work with him was a dream come true. I was a little fanboy. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm working with Robert Rodriguez. So that was a dream come true. But to watch him craft the story around basically kind of, you know, ideas for action set pieces. The script was, you know, got everyone from A to B, but he's like, well, wouldn't this be cool? And again, the collaborative nature of that environment that John's created is John would be like, yeah, run with it. And Robert might be like, hey, Sam, you know, what do you think here? And I would give a thing and we'd run with it. So it became this synergistic group of filmmakers. And, you know, also, again, very blessed that he would let me run off with a camera and shoot, because, you know, he shoots fat. Robert shoots fast. He shoots great stuff, and he's got a really good feel for action. So for him to trust me to shoot action that would kind of represents him as the director, because his name's on the episode. I get, you know, I'm back there at the back, you know, second unit director, but on his episode, to let me have some of the freedom he did was an honor. And, you know, I hope that he's happy with how it came out, because it seems like, you know, a lot of people were. I am pretty proud of what we put together.
Well, the thing that I also learned in that featurette is that the show has 2 units going at all times. It's not like you can get that thing done with just first unit. Like there's a lot to do. So what were you there? Like, can you sort of talk about the fact that there are 2 units going all the time? And for people that maybe don't understand what that means, what does that mean?
Yeah. For those who don't understand, a second unit is generally a part of the filmmaking process that is designated to shooting action, visual effects plates, or pickup shots that they weren't able to get on the main unit. The main unit stays with the main story, the main cast, and kind of travels through their schedule. And then there's either where you have a lot of stunt performers and you don't need a lot of the cast. The second unit comes in and can knock off a lot of important work for the movie or feature or series, or you run off to sometimes Hawaii to get plate shots or run down to the wherever and get things that they need to tie all the pieces together. So on something this big and so many moving parts and such a short time span, because what I think they've done amazingly is the kind of feature film level TV. And there's such a short turnover in television. You only get a certain amount of time to shoot these episodes, maybe 7 to 10 days. And so to get the level of excellence that they're looking for, it's helpful to have 2 units going at the same time because, you're getting twice the work. So I was heavily involved with the second season and, doing basically whatever they needed me to do. I would work with different directors at different times on different parts of, different episodes, and whatever I could do to help. That's just kind of my approach to filmmaking and work and life really, is like, how can I help? How can I be of service? What is it that we need to do to get this done and, make it the best possible for everybody involved?
When you're working on something like Mandalorian, you mentioned, like, for example, Robert trusts you to do some action. Was that the way it was with all the different directors? Like, I mean, you have a really good track record and people know your work. So is it sort of like, the director's talking to you and saying, we need to accomplish this, go do it? Like, can you sort of talk about how much freedom you had?
I was granted a lot of freedom on that show because it does help having a track record. Now, at the time, to be fair, the Extraction hadn't come out, so they didn't know, like, as a director, they didn't really know. They knew I was working on a movie, like editing it together. But I have, a extensive background in that. People have seen my action directing before in movies like The Avengers or Captain America, some of the different things, or Atomic Blonde. So they know I can handle action. But the thing that, because great if they sometimes would hand you an actor and be like, hey, can you pick up this scene? And you get to shoot a scene, because it's just trying to help them take care of things that they may not have the time to do. And it's great to be trusted to do that. And it's always great when you feel included in because sometimes, like, I came in late to the second season. The first season, they had their little family, and to come into that, in the second season, sometimes different projects could be a little bit standoffish, and they'd be like, hey, we got a way we do things. We don't want you to be involved. But I have to credit John. It starts at the top. So John and all the, department heads were very accepting of the new guy, which was me, and some of my ideas and ways of wanting to do stuff. So I felt very thankful that they were so open and willing to work with me.
Typically speaking, say you're getting ready to do one of the episodes. How much time did you actually have for each episode before you started filming to sort of break down what you wanted to do and the behind the scenes? And how much is it just like, man, we are really cutting it close on these things?
They were very big on preparation. So we did have time to practice the things we needed to practice if it was a big intricate action sequence, or design set pieces that were going to be involved in the action. So they were very big on prep. And I think they're correct in that the more prepared you are, the easier it's going to be to get those, days accomplished in the short amount of time you do, and finish an episode in 10 days when you're trying to shoot feature quality stuff. So I never really felt rushed, which was great and surprising on a TV show. Now, when you get there on the day, yes, on a feature film, like if we're working on the Avengers, I might have 4 days to shoot an action sequence, where in this one you have 1. So you are still up against it, but that prep time, which they gave us, which was fantastic, allowed you to come up with stuff and execute. You have to also manage your expectations. Like there's certain levels of scale that you're not going to be able to achieve because it's not, feasible in that time. But I think for the time we had and for what we pulled off in that season, some of the big epic set pieces, I was pretty impressed with how well the team coalesced and brought all those elements together in a timely fashion.
one of the things about the Mandalorian that maybe is an advantage is that a lot of people are wearing helmets, and it's not your your Brad Pitt, if you will, having to perform something. You know, it could be a stunt person or a lot of stunt people under helmets.
There's a lot of advantages to a lot of your main characters being helmeted and fully covered. Basically, it gives you the ability to, you can be shooting on 2 units and still achieving the same thing with the same character if you need to. Now, we tried to bounce around the same stuff just because they've developed a way of moving and a way of physical language of the Mandalorian and certain characters. So we tried to stay true to that and keep those characters or the people who doubled them on screen and not, mix it up too much. But it does allow you to get a lot more, a lot more bang for your buck, meaning you could do longer takes of fight scenes because it's the stunt performer and not the actor. You could do, you could get, like I said, more setups because you can, and not to be discriminating, but you can push the stunt people a little harder sometimes. You can say, hey, we got to do that one again because it wasn't great. And they'll, they understand. They're more of the, in general, the kind of working class to where they go, like, they will push, especially if I'm right there with them. If I'm right there, hey, and they look at me and they know I've done it before, they're like, okay, I'll do it again. And you can get that extra take. You can go a little bit, longer, a little bit further, and which is super helpful in a TV schedule because, you don't have a lot of time and you got to move fast and you got to be accurate. So it's really helpful to have helmets on a lot of these players so you could move with the speed and efficiency that you needed to make your days on a TV schedule.
When Mando looks a certain way, he like moves his whole body. Like there's there's certain movements for each of these kind of helmeted characters. Were there a lot of takes you had to redo because all of a sudden you realized, oh wait, you moved your neck. Like we have to make it so it's,
Rarely, because we tried, and the people that were performing in the suit at different times were very, they're great. That's why they're hired. They're the best at what they do. So they know, they have, especially by season 2, they have adopted the movements of the Mandalorian. And so, whichever performer we got at that time, you really didn't have to worry too much about it. Now, we were very cognizant. We didn't just say, oh, do how you want. We were cognizant, and occasionally we'd have to go again and say it, in your excitement, that wasn't quite the Mando movement, like we need to try that again. But it was rare because we had such great performers.
Were you on set when George came to visit?
I was there, but I was working on another stage, but I did pass through and I saw him there. He was, he was actually, you would have thought that the real Yoda had showed up. He kind of did, but there was more people there that day than any other day on any other, episode of the whole season. It was as if you were at Comic-Con on the stage where he was. It was crazy.
Yeah, I would imagine, listen, he's the creator. He's the genius behind everything. Is it one of those things that even though you're working on this, like how hard is it to not want to go up to George Lucas and say, your work means a lot to me. I would really like to take a picture. Or do you sort of just like, you can't do that because,
Oh, I wanted to. You want to, but then there's like the fanboy who just wants to stop everything you're doing and go, oh my gosh, I'm gonna wait in line if it takes an hour and get a picture. But there's a couple elements to it. One is I've got a job to do that. They're not paying me to do that. To socialize. The other is he didn't necessarily come down here to take a bunch of pictures with people. He just wants to come in and see the fruit of his labors of 30-40 years ago, and he just want so I'm like, let him enjoy it. Like that's a huge, as huge as it is for us to see him there. It's got to be an amazing moment for him to see that this idea that he had back in the 70s was still like is surging in popularity and going strong, and it's like this is his baby, and now it's grown into a whole extended family that he should be totally proud of. So I wanted to let him soak that up.
I thought Rosario Dawson did such a great job, and her look on the series is so awesome. Can you sort of talk a little bit about what it was like for you seeing her for the first time in costume with the makeup, and maybe also working with her at all on crafting, with the lightsabers and with her action?
Rosario is an amazing performer. even, when she's not done up as her Star Wars get up. Do my research for the second season. I had watched Clone Wars, the animated series that Dave Filoni, had written and directed a lot of those episodes. So to see Dave craft, like, he wrote that episode. Dave Filoni wrote and directed the episode that she was in. So, and that character was very near and dear to his heart. So to see his effort and detailed, dedicated time spent working with Rosario, working with everyone to make every frame a masterpiece was really fun. That was his baby, and to watch him, he was stressed. He was like, pulling his hair out, but he really, in my opinion, that episode was one of the most distinct because of the style. He was so committed to that style, it's his choice, but that kind of samurai movie style from opening frame to closing frame, and he stuck to it and did such a unique look and feel that I'd say that was artistically one of my favorite episodes. So hats off to Dave and Rosario for bringing that character to life.
Well, there's also just that episode has such incredible shots because, and I would like you to also talk about the fact that these lightsabers have, like, they're on set practically. So you have the light on the lightsaber, and the DP is able to use that light to craft shots where it's like you're not doing CGI later. Like when the lightsaber lights up across her face, it just looks so awesome.
Yeah, because it is lighting up across her face. The props department made some amazing lightsabers, and that it helps everybody, because then there's it's the difference between having a rubber gun on set and then having like a blank firing gun. There's a certain level of, I mean, I don't know, it just changes the way you move and the level of power you feel, right? When you have an actual thing in your hand that when you push a button, it lights up, and then you can actually, make contact with, like, so the fights, they were making contact with those things, and, we'd break a few because that's what stunt performers do. But you could actually feel the connection. You could see the light reflecting in their eyes. It really made it seem as if you were in the scene, and it helped the actors draw energy. It helped the crew get excited. It was a super cool thing. I was really impressed with the lightsabers.
Yeah. How involved were you in crafting what she did in that episode in the forest with because it's just so well done.
Yeah. Well, truthfully, like, if you look at the boards, that most of that stuff, Ryan and the stunt team did a lot of the choreography for the stuff in the courtyard, and they execute stuff. But a lot of those things, like the running through the forest and the reveals of cutting guys down, that was Dave. Like, he showed storyboards and previs of stuff that he had been working on for months, and Dave Filoni came up with a lot of those beats just up here. He knows his Star Wars lore, man. He's an OG.
Oh, I mean, yeah. There's a reason why George came to set, and his name is Dave.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's pure and simple. What do you think, for fans of the series, what do you think? I mean, there's a lot of information known about the volume and everything else, but is there anything that you, making season 2, that you took away like, wow, I wish fans knew about this?
I'll just say some of the things that were most enjoyable for me that I appreciated, and I think fans would too, is the use of practical effects, practical makeup, practical, creatures, rather than leaning, because what's cool about it is the volume is so amazingly CG, and that's like a great use of that technology. So then to offset that and to make you feel its connection, they use, like little baby Yoda, little Grogu. That's a real, animatronic puppet. The thing can, like, and it can freak you out, and you just find yourself like smile because the guys, and they'll mess with people, like the guys, the puppeteers, like if he's sitting there, like they'll look up at you and, like, do the droopy eyes, and his ears will drop down, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's alive. And so you connect with it on a level that you could never do with a CG character, or if you're holding like a tennis ball and they're going to put it in later. So that, and then what you mentioned, like the lightsabers, like having so many things be practical was both a kind of a throwback for me of, when older movies were made and everything, it wasn't relying so much on CG, but also, you're in a universe that is so reliant on CG, and this environment that we're in that juxtaposition was really fun for me as a fan of the franchise and of filmmaking technology.
I'm almost done, I promise, but I of course have to talk about Boba Fett. Watching Robert and talking to Robert about being able to bring Boba Fett back into Mandalorian and having him just kick ass. Talk a little bit about how involved were you with the Boba Fett stuff and just maybe what it meant to you as a fan.
As a fan, there's not a whole lot better than that moment when Mando looks up and sees, Boba's ship come in and go down. Like, you're like, oh shit. And then one of the cool moments, and I think Robert might be the best director to give that moment to, is when he shows up. We did a lot of cool stuff with him with his club and like in the robes, but when he shows up in the armor, like that's the way he, captured that, and that, that was all in his head. We helped with moves and things, but the feeling of that, of the low angles and the slow motion, that was all from Robert. And I think that as a fan, just, you were there smiling every day on set, man, this is going to be so awesome.
Yeah, it was kind of good. I'm gonna go out there.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, were you there at all for the very, very end when you're back in Jabba's palace?
I was not there that day. I was shooting other stuff. Yeah, I was not there that day.
When did you hear that was going to be included? When did you first hear that was going to be included and that they were making a Boba Fett series?
Well, I didn't even I had no idea. Like I said, I was on, even with this, I'd get the scripts and I would read that, but then it was when I wasn't there, my focus went on, I think while they were doing that, I was working on episode 7, like the train sequence. So it kind of just went over my head and I didn't really pay much attention to it. And when it was mentioned that like he might get his own spinoff, I was like, oh man, that's amazing. Like, and who doesn't want to see, like, Mando's been so great for fans of the Star Wars universe, to add this other epically awesome character to the canon. It's going to be fantastic.
Well, the thing that I couldn't believe was, because I know how much Boba meant to Robert, and now Robert's an executive producer on that show. I don't know how many episodes he's going to helm. I don't know exactly the details, but it says a lot that Robert wants to be involved in that series. It just tells you how much he must really love that character.
He loves the character, loves the Star Wars universe. Like, he would show up to set with a leather jacket and like pop it open, and he'd have like on the inside, the lining was all Star Wars characters and Boba Fett. And like, man, it's like, he's a total fan. And so when that opportunity, I think he was extremely excited, not to speak for Robert, but he seemed like a kid in a candy store when he was on set. When we were doing episode 206, he was beyond happy.
What did you possibly borrow from set? Or were there any cool crew gifts that you guys got?
Crew gifts. I think I got a sweatshirt. It's pretty cool. I got like I don't know where it's around here somewhere, but I got a nice hoodie that was, very thoughtful gift. So I was, any kind of, I mean, I've been doing it, so, for 16 years now, any kind of that stuff. I've got so much of that stuff sitting around that it's like, oh man, not another one. But this is one, like, having something from a Star Wars, working on a Star Wars project, that's one that you're going to hold on to forever, because that's a little bit of history. And so that's special.